Hello, my human family. This is me back from vacation you didn't realize I had because I had a couple in the can and I've put them put them off while I sat here a bearded wonder with my hair looking like Bob from Twin Peaks and my attitude looking like um, Bob from Twin Peaks. Um, uh, I have a guest on we've had on the Fluid Voice a couple of times, and who I like very much, and yet we've never quite gotten together to do this thing, which I've. This is entirely my fault. This is not in any way hers. Um, the Effeminate Degenerate, I got that right. Um, Also known as Lapis. You had another name on the Fluid Voice, but uh, I've gone off it. I'm terrible in names. So I'm not going to go too far because I usually research everybody to the teeth, and I didn't do that this time. I'm going to admit it straight off the bat. So uh, I want to say hi to Lapis because hello.
Hello, Christy.
um, well, the first question is always the same, so it's pretty easy. I'm sort of the James Lipton of lazy questioning. The um,
Well, if
what
it's what they say is true. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Oh, exactly. So what do you do? Uh, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it? See, I forgot my own standard question. This is, this is how much I've been taking a break.
Well, my name is Lapis, and I also go on YouTube by the name The Effeminate Degenerate, and my Twitter handle is @DegenerateThing, which is, I think, the name that Christy had forgot. I am a YouTube and Twitter personality, a podcaster, and in my offline life, I am a student majoring in history. Um, why do I use YouTube, Twitter, and social media? Um, well, I guess my goal is to have conversations with people and to learn new things and to help identify spots or weaknesses or biases in my own understanding of the world. I see social media as, you know, not only for me to teach and help others, but also an opportunity for me to connect and be taught.
Well, you don't seem to dive into the health. You you tend to keep the hellscape away from you a little bit because everybody says Twitter's a hellscape, and I'm like, I have one or two hellscapes over here that are trying to intrude. You seem to have the same thing. It's like, yeah, screw them.
Well, yes, there definitely are people on any website that can be full of drama and hate and just kind of a desire to provoke, and that's really not my modus operandi. Um, sure, I do have people on my timeline that also excite a similar feeling of, but I understand that at moments in everyone's life, they're going to want to provoke others. They're going to be more vulnerable than, say, I'm comfortable with at that particular moment, or they're going to be mean or what have you. And, you know, a little patience is warranted. Of course, there can be times that people take advantage of that patience, and you need to watch out for that.
Yeah, um, I'm having a few of those in my DMs right now. Uh, who I want help, and then okay, sure, let's work on this, and then they go, okay, do everything for me. No,
Mm-hmm.
not how that's going to happen. Um, the we talked just before the thing a little bit about uh, the tendency towards solipsism while when retreating. Um, this is something I'm very familiar with this last few weeks. So, and it's also your favorite videos on your own solipsism, and I didn't watch it, so I'm putting that right out there. My fault. I didn't find the website in time.
Mm. Well, let's, if it suits your fancy, we can always link it in the description so people know what the heck we're talking about.
Oh yeah, if I mention some particular video, I always try and link it,
Oh,
unless
that's a
it's.
good policy. Sorry, that sounded patronizing.
Now, once in a while, I do YouTube properly.
So yeah, my the video which Christy is referring to, How I Destroyed My Life, is one of my favorite videos because I think it shows me at my most vulnerable and at my most open to my vulnerability. And it was really at that moment that I realized my errors and I began to start turning my life around. Sure, there were a lot of bumps along the way, and I still predict that there will be bumps in the future, but that really was the lowest point of my existence. And I truly felt lost and defeated. But generally, my response to shame in particular is to withdraw from others, to feel that I'm not worthy of their presence and that I don't want to be around them. And that, my default response to this sort of pain is to do less and less and less and to isolate myself from the world. And to justify doing this, to justify, this, one could say, selfish sort of behavior, I turn towards solipsism. I pretend that, maybe I am the only person in the universe, and all of these other people are phantasms. They're shades that I've constructed of my own imagination, and they only exist as a shadow play to my own ego. And so I don't really need to care about them. I don't really need to do anything for them because there's nothing really there. There's no real beauty that I can find in others. There's no real beauty there's nothing that they can do to add to my life. And there's nothing I can do to help them because they're just manifestations of my own insecurities. So the best thing I can do for myself and for them is to retreat and let them carry on their busy life outside while I can focus on properly understanding the universe, meditating and understanding that I am the only thing there.
Well, I did say this is also my same reaction to it. Although part of it, I mean, obviously, it's elite defense mechanism.
Yeah.
I don't. It's one of those strange. It's one of those strange things where I know other people exist. I live with 3 other people.
Yeah.
Once in a while, food shows up on my stove, and that's cool. But I often will just say I'll use the Kurt Vonnegut thing, which is you're all robots put on Earth to test me, which is it used to be the tags on all my social media actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And how do you think the test is going?
Uh, you're asking me right now at a point where I feel I'm failing it miserably. So it's one of those. Yeah, I'm glad I had shows in the can, and I have one more for next week. But because I didn't need the time alone.
And time alone doesn't necessarily have to be unhealthy. I just find that it usually is in my case. The way I do time alone is less that I let other people know that, hey, I'm going through a difficult time. I might need to retreat a little bit. Can you support me through this? And more that I just kind of without sort of warning, I drop them out of my life and start responding to them less and less, and I do less and less. And I just kind of retreat into this bubble of isolation where I limit as much as possible my interaction with any other body.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I, I do the silly things on Twitter or maybe on Facebook, and I do take care of business if I remember. And but it's like, who cares? We don't worry about that. The what is your overarching, if you have an overarching focus, what is it for your channel? Because we don't have many crossover subs, which I've noticed.
Well, I'd say that my main overarching focus would be, what is the main? I mean, generally it's a political channel, but that was probably the one video I made that was more about my inner life. And incidentally, it's also one of my most successful videos. I guess maybe my broad overarching theme would be, I guess, the importance of conversation, the importance of hearing what other people have to say, because most of my videos are streams, and if they're not streams, they're in some way engaging with some sort of idea or moment that someone else has had. So I think that would probably be the thing that to me is the most, like the biggest takeaway from my channel is conversation matters, and you can gain a lot from conversation.
Well, just from the side note, I noticed a couple of times when I've been interviewed that I'll turn around and I'll start doing asking the questions and putting people on the spot. And I notice you're doing a little of the same thing, which is kind of like, okay, so let's go into conversation of, of interrogating each other. I mean, we're not interrogating each other in a bad way, just
So you think I'm being kind of a reciprocal interviewee? I'm starting to interview you a little bit.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to.
Oh no, it happens. I have, when like I said, I've been interviewed a couple of times where I think half the interview is me asking them questions more. And it's all right. So how are you feeling?
At this particular moment?
Yeah.
Pretty good. I just finished recording an episode of my podcast. I got together with a person who I've been in love with for a year. I feel like I have a new lease on life to pursue, advances in the world of work, in the world of, going back to university, which is coming up soon. I feel just very confident on life right now, which is rare for me. I'm usually a rather, kind of a more low-key, down sort of person, but right now I feel very happy.
You're if I go by your thing, your bio, you're 20.
That's right. I just turned 20 on the 26th of May.
I feel like I'm almost 3 times older than you. I haven't gotten it together yet, so I'm not entirely. Of course, I don't know if you've heard of Queer Time. So,
No, I don't think I have.
oh, it has a lot to do, and it's just, especially of older people who take a while coming out,
Yeah.
even though they know. A lot of it is the waiting for being who they are or being who we are. Let's personalize it because it's how I feel. And you came out early.
Yeah. I came out I had just turned 18. I came out in front of my school auditorium in a poetic recitation to the crowd.
You were saying over on Fluid Voice about that, and it's I don't know, from the way you were talking over there, I thought, okay, it's your valedictorian speech, and you're coming out. By the way, I wrote one of those, one of those speeches for graduation of high school to come
It wasn't.
and sing coming out, but nobody
Yeah.
would have been surprised back then.
Well, it wasn't really a speech; it was a poem.
It's good speeches are good poems.
Hmm.
I'm gonna try. I'm doing a saving throw for my the way I said it.
What do you think you rolled?
Oh, my dice are solipsistic too. I have no idea where they.
Well, if your dice are solipsistic, I'm betting you got snake eyes or a natural one.
Yeah, probably. They don't believe I exist anymore. Well, why did you do it?
Why did I?
Yeah.
I wanted to do it in a way that it would be impossible to just disappear from it. You know, it would be possible for my parents not to have to confront that reality that I was trans. And I wanted to help in some way, I guess, make it a normal thing, you know, and to have people understand that this is my reality.
We are oh, it's the 29th. It would be the second anniversary of me coming out, which I did on stage.
Commonalities. Happy anniversary, Christy.
Yeah. This is being recorded on the 29th. It'll be up on the 30th, but the 29th is the anniversary as far as I remember it. Everything's a blur from that week. So yeah, to start with a song I'd written years before when I thought I was going to come out. I'd rewritten it for much more sensitive palettes, and not so there's some what the heck is that doing there's in there instead of coming out right out and saying it, which I did in the original version, including a line I changed. There was one line I changed. I'm not the man that you'd want me to be, which is I just changed. I'm not a man though you'd want me to be.
Well, it's a bit more explicit.
Yeah. So.
And a bit less of a cliche.
Yeah, but after I pull back from the microphone and scream, "What do you want from me?" In both versions.
Yeah. I believe you've, do you still have a musical career?
Oh, yeah. If somebody would tell me the schedule, we had to do the local music festival virtually this year. So I did 6 songs, including that song.
Amazing.
And I wrote a new song for it, which I do every year, at least.
Well, that's good. Way to keep your material fresh and not just do the same old thing every time.
Yeah. And then I did something I wrote in 1990. Not exactly fresh.
Maybe, but then again, sometimes old thoughts can surface at just the right moment to provide new value.
It's true. Do you still do poetry? Is that a side thing for you? Side thing for you, or a happy thing for you, or?
I should do it more than I used to. I should do it more than I do. I used to write a lot of poetry back when I was in the literary arts program, but it's kind of fallen off since then. I really should get back into it because poetry is a way to express yourself that I hadn't necessarily considered before. I mean, I'd written poetry before, but before those 2 years, I just really took off in terms of what I would produce. And then after that, much less so.
It's one of those things that gets harder the more you know what you're doing.
Hmm. True. I mean, when you're a teenager, you don't necessarily make any sort of judgments about your work. It's just, oh, this is just how I feel, everybody. And as you get older, you start to be so much more self-critical, and that bleeds over into your artistic life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Um. So if you're studying history, you're up in the Great White North, uh, as we call it here. I don't. We don't call it that in Buffalo, but everybody else calls it that apparently.
Apparently.
Um. What focus on history are you going for? Just general.
Well, right now it's just a undergraduate. So the focus, I would say, is world history, you know, and that basically translates to a history that is global and not centered around Europe, um, which of course is a very, very broad topic. And as I pursue my studies in history, it will become much more specific.
Which direction are you thinking of going, or you haven't even?
I have thought about it. Sometimes I think I'd like to pursue a study of the Americas, but more specifically the Mesoamericans, you know, the Mayans, the Olmecs, the Toltecs, the Aztecs. Um, and then sometimes I think, oh, well, what about studying the history of, let's say, India in the 19th century? Lots of lessons you can learn from India, that period. Um,
Yeah, randomly drawn lines are probably not a good idea. The first one.
yeah, and then the other one is history of the Middle East in, I don't know, 17th century. I'm very interested in the interplay between the Ottoman and the Safavid empires, um, and how, interesting it was that as recently as the 17th century, the largest power in Europe um, was a Middle Eastern country.
Yes, although if you include the Turkey in the Middle East, I suppose as a crossroads, that history gets very hairy.
Oh, yeah. Um, in many ways, the boundaries between Middle East and Europe and, terms like Orient, Occidental, they're all of these sorts of false binaries of basically a history that is a lot more fluid and that can't really be separated into any one region specifically.
Well, although in ancient times there was a road marker on the Silk Road which marked exactly where you were going from, not just one country to another, but one entire region to another, which
Mm-hmm.
I find fascinating. It's one of those tiny bits of history that I find fascinating. I could probably do an entire dissertation on that wall itself.
At
Is
one
it?
wall.
Yeah, it's not. And it's not like on a wall to keep people out. It's just people who know. Okay, you're entering an entirely different region. Um, so be prepared. You're going to change languages or something. I have to find an interpreter, that kind of thing.
That is quite interesting. And a lot of these languages, like French, um, they're the common French, that is spoken by everyone in France now, was in many ways a created language, created in the late 18th and 19th centuries, and standardized by Napoleon, and before it was endless series of, provincial dialects that often were quite dissimilar from one another. I find little tidbits like that interesting, how the nation was created before there was a nation to be proud of, and how basically the history of nations, I find that interesting. Their rise, their fall, especially their fall.
You're getting to witness ours, the U.S. in real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, I shouldn't have laughed at that. That's increasingly sad. Uh, and being told today that suburbs won't have to worry about low-income housing, which that's not a dog whistle at all, of course.
Mm.
We I don't know. You may or may not have noticed we have kind of a monster in the White House right now.
Oh, of course. I mean, Donald Trump is one of the worst presidents in American history, right up there with Andrew Jackson, Andrew Johnson. Personally, I consider those to be the worst.
Buchanan Jackson.
Buchanan also belongs there as well.
Yeah, I would say Buchanan Jackson, Trump, but no, fuck it. Trump
The
has
worst
managed.
president.
He's working on it.
He may not have much time to work on it left.
Well,
but then again, I do worry sometimes that he'll just, say, no, the election was faked. The Democrats made illegals vote. And then the whole sham will collapse. His supporters will come out in private militias and enforce their rule on the country.
it's one of the, if nothing else can be said, interesting about 2020, and this is true here, slightly less in Canada, but not as good as it could be. Great Britain, I suppose all the majorly Anglophone countries at this point.
Not really New Zealand or Australia.
Yeah, I forget they exist.
Oh, you American.
And I have a doppelganger in New Zealand, so we converse often. The we're both redheads. We're both guitar players and musicians, working musicians, and
I didn't know your hair was naturally red.
Yeah, this is me.
I always saw it as a bit more of a gold color.
Oh yeah, it gets a brightness because of the overhead light.
I see.
Yeah, he and I, we were both musicians, and we both came out about the same, almost exactly the same time. So,
I see.
So, I got lost.
Your point about the Anglophone countries.
Yeah, I'm finding the Anglophone countries are having the Northern Hemisphere Anglophone countries save. Okay, that's a 2 turn. Are having trouble because they have systems that are set up not to deal with capitalism not working.
Well, they've eaten away at the social democracy that they installed when they were worried about communism taking over. And now that feeble safety net that would have protected capital has been completely, well, almost completely torn away, they've been met with a choice. Okay, are we going to do massive stimulus spending? Are we going to provide for our citizens? Now in Canada, we get $1,000 $400 every month from the government as a response to the mass shutdowns and the, quarantine that has necessitated social distancing. And, testing is free, healthcare is, free at the point of service. And there's been a great amount of bipartisanship in instilling those measures all across the country and making sure that people stay socially distanced and in quarantine and wearing masks. Even our furthest right premiers have been condemning the foolish people who are anti-mask. Like our furthest right premier, Doug Ford, who rules my province, said that those people were a bunch of yahoos and they ought to be locked up.
So Doug Ford saying something correct seems I can't fit that in my brain properly.
Well, I think that it's just like, yeah, the Great Britain messed up quite a bit by their thing being like, oh yeah, we need to delay. We should just try to do what the Swedes are doing, isolation would just make us vulnerable to a second wave. So let's try some herd immunity. And that once that nonsensical idea was presented as, okay, so you want 200,000 people to die, that's what it's going to cost, they wised up pretty quickly. And although I do believe that Great Britain is one of the world's worst affected countries, probably third, not necessarily per capita, but just in sheer number of people dead.
Per capita, it seems to be either third or second, depending on what actual numbers we're getting out of Russia.
I was under the impression that it went America, Brazil, Great Britain in terms of number of deaths.
I was throwing Brazil in fourth. I absolutely could be wrong. I don't pay as much attention. I pay attention to the people who are affecting me, and that's all the screaming I can do at one particular moment.
Yeah, well, at this particular juncture, Jair Bolsonaro has managed the coronavirus so incredibly poorly that Brazil is skyrocketing in its cases, even worse than Trump, I think, actually, in his handling. Because although Trump doesn't wear a mask, he seems to at least believe that the virus is real. Jair Bolsonaro thinks it is no more dangerous than the common cold.
Yeah, I get those on Facebook once in a while, which is a nice way to find out who to block.
Yeah, classic mistake is going on Facebook in the first place.
Yeah, but my friends are old. What do you want from me?
I suppose, yes. You are, due to your age, you are consigned to the boomer app.
Even though I'm Gen X, so just
really
just putting that out there.
I always thought that you were a boomer.
I am 1 month younger than the inaction of the Civil Rights
Act. Well, I always thought that boomer went to 65.
Beginning of 65.
Yeah, so you were born in
65.
68? Okay. So you just missed being a boomer.
Yes, it goes to, depending on where you go, and it's always the cutoff is 65 or the end of 64. But sociologically, the boomer goes to the enactment of the Civil Rights Act in January. And I was born in February.
Yeah.
My kid is Gen Z.
I'm Gen Z.
Okay, so you're roughly in the same cohort.
So, but anyway, your point is that the Anglophone countries are handling it rather poorly, which is kind of weird because the worst province in terms of coronavirus in Canada is Quebec by like a long shot. I honestly blame the Canadian response mainly on we're far too lax with our provinces. Canada's basically what's happened if the states' rights people in America got their way. The provinces have pretty much all the power compared to the federal government.
I don't know as much about Canada as I thought I did, which I like learning stuff.
No, it can be a bit misleading. I think maybe I painted the colors a bit too harshly, but the Canadian provinces have a lot more power than the American states, as it were. But there is a delineation of responsibilities, whereas America does not have that same sort of legal separation. There are certain things in Canada that are handled by municipalities, certain things that are handled by provinces, and certain things that are handled by the federal government. In America, I was under the impression that counties, states, and the federal government could pass laws on pretty much any sort of jurisdiction, willy-nilly.
It's trickier than that, but yeah. Federal law supersedes state law in most cases, but federal courts have been ruling that it's okay for governors to say, oh, there's no mask order or there's no stay-at-home order.
Which is, the evil of Kavanaugh, and why it is so disappointing that Joe Biden will not remove him, that he has explicitly refused to do so.
There's nothing he can actually do. Kavanaugh, any Supreme Court justice has to be impeached, die, or retire.
Oh, I meant, couldn't Joe Biden encourage a Democrat-led Senate to impeach Kavanaugh?
Sort of. To get into that minutia of our political system is really, it's beyond the remit here, but yes and no, but it has to be for egregious things. And a lot of the Supreme Court can actually say no. Somebody's knocking the door. 1 second. Hello? Hello? Oh, thank you. Oh, cool. Thank you. Hi. Well, there we go. I don't cut anything out, so the fact that I got Burger King is here forever.
Oh no. Quelle tragédie. Personally, I don't really eat fast food.
Nor do I. It's a bit of comfort food at the end of the depression cycle.
I see.
I haven't really eaten anything for the police. What they can be impeached for is a little more delineated than, say, what the president can be impeached for. There's much more leeway to impeach a president than to impeach a judge.
Which seems a bit foolish. Couldn't that be changed?
With the constitutional amendments, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like, really? You'd need a complete constitutional amendment to change the way you impeach Supreme Court justices? I think I understand potentially why that could be, but it still is a bit of a frustration. Canada has its own storied history of, trying to change and get people to accept a constitutional change, and it just failing every time in the referendums. People just don't seem to like change very much.
No.
So what is Joe Biden's options potentially? Expand the Supreme Court? And didn't FDR do that?
FDR tried. FDR failed. Joe Biden's options are...
So what would...
Well, 2 of them are going to be retiring within this term. So obviously Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the furthest left. So that's a wash. Um, he can do a lot with executive order. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court has let Trump get away with enough where he has a lot more power than, say, Obama did.
Hmm. Well, a Republican backed Supreme Court would not really probably let Joe Biden get away with any executivation. Not that Joe Biden really has a bold enough temperament to do so.
Yeah, he does.
Hmm.
I think people underestimate Joe Biden a lot, and he's done levers of power for almost his entire career. So he which started in the 70s. I think he's all right.
Like, as in good?
I regardless of what I feel about Joe Biden, I think he'll work the system however he works the system.
Yeah, but how Joe Biden has worked the system, judging by his record, has mainly been to move it right. I mean,
No,
that is my interpretation of Joe Biden's political career. Started as a segregationist, or at least an opponent of quote unquote forced busing. You know,
yeah,
um,
those were two different things.
I
There,
know that, but the forced busing controversy was in opposition to desegregation measures of
yes,
moving white children to more diverse schools.
there was part of the problem was a tax revolt, believe it or not, with the busing situation that people don't talk about much or people don't know about. I've been paying attention to politics since I was very little. So
Mm. And that got Proposition 13 in California that has proven such a pain.
yeah, there's so much problems, and there's reasons for things, but yes, he was the first one to come out on trans rights before Obama.
I do
Be-
remember him being pretty good on LGBTQ. That
yeah,
is the one thing I will give him. He came out also on gay marriage, I believe, before Obama.
yeah, that actually took him longer, which is kind of funny.
Really? I always thought that it was Joe Biden that came first, but maybe it's my memory.
No. It took him. He came out before Obama, but Obama was about to make the announcement, and Joe just sort of offhandedly said it. So,
He stole his thunder.
yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
but
I've never really thought that Joe Biden had necessarily a problem on queer rights.
no,
I more mean that, like, he can't even bring himself to support legalized marijuana, which I find very bizarre because that's not really an unpopular political position. Um, and then there was that nonsense about how there was I think it was during the primary, it was like, yes, the Hyde Amendment was good. We should keep that.
yeah, but in the U.S., if you were trying to repeal the Hyde Amendment, you're done. Everything else you want to do after that is gone.
Really, I find that to be very interesting.
Yeah,
Because my interpretation of that is that usually by executive action, people had always been or at least Democratic presidents had been circumventing the idea that, oh yeah, let's use Medicare or Medicaid money to give people money to have access to their reproductive health,
yeah.
um,
People have been
and that had
circulating.
been ended under Trump.
People have been circulating it. Have been
Circumventing.
circumventing. Thank you. Circumventing it for a while. The I can't remember the last thing Obama did because it got struck down. Although the strike down reinforced Roe v. Wade. So one of those uh, half and half things that the Supreme Court sometimes does. Uh,
Yeah.
the Yeah, it's complicated, and get why he's doing a lot of this stuff. I was not one of his supporters. I think I voted for him in '88, but
Was that before you knew he had lied about, everything?
yeah, the '88 thing when he grabbed Neil Kinnock's speech was bad.
Oh, and also how he had completely fabricated like his academic career as well.
I
Just
actually I would know nothing about that. And
Yeah, well, I mean, it's by far the least bad thing that Joe Biden has done. For me, it's Anita Hill. It's we need to prosecute anarchists. Um, it's
yeah,
if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I just find him to be an intensely unappealing person, but most Americans seem to like him, so he'll probably win. Just like Ronald Reagan.
yeah, except he's not Reagan, which
Thankfully, yeah, Ronald Reagan was the devil.
I lived in queer space. I lived in the queer community during Reagan. Um, I I have a lot of uh, I hate to appropriate the term PTSD, but every time I think about that time, all I think is my friend's dying. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what PTSD was supposed to describe. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat. It's just post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, it's why the only reason for saying appropriating it is because mine is not it's not it doesn't keep me up at night, but it's
Hmm.
always there in the background somewhere.
I see this hatred of Reagan. Well, I do not believe that Joe Biden will be a Reagan. I don't know. I guess I hope he wins because his policies are better. I noticed that he's exciting very little interest from people my age.
Yeah, and which is unfortunate. He's a lot of the things that he gets. Well, a lot of the things that people have against him are actually him moving the ball forward.
Hmm.
It's in ways that all the context is missing. All the current context is missing from it. And yeah, he fucked up a lot when he was young. And I don't, and I think he fucked up his intention with the Anita Hill hearings pretty badly. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's another thing that most people talk about. I don't know. Joe Biden, to me, was one of the worst Democrats that were running, probably bar what's a face, Bloomberg. But
mm,
I understand why people feel they need to drum up a certain amount of excitement because, well, he's not Trump, is not exactly how you win an election campaign. Um,
I'm not trying.
so I understand why.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to drum up enthusiasm for Biden. It's this is this is the and this is partly the way my mind works.
Yeah.
If the context that I know doesn't match what is going on or what is being said, then I push back against that with the context of it. But other than that, he wasn't my first. I was a Warren person by far. I mean, I've been wanting Warren to run since 1994. So before she was a senator, I saw her on TV. I said, I want that person to be my president.
Well, that's really interesting.
And then I read her
I
book.
can't remember ever thinking that. To me, I don't know. Maybe this is just, I probably would have been more excited if I was an American, but honestly, I can't even really be that excited about the prime minister, the federal elections in Canada. Um, I just feel very intensely betrayed by the Liberal Party, which is
Yeah.
the equivalent to the Democrats. And, you know, to their credit, unlike the Democrats, they did legalize marijuana. They did institute trans rights pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
Granted, the Democratic Party tried the latter. But I don't know. I really hate their stance on Indigenous issues. And, that's basically all it really has to be.
Well, since Mackenzie, which prime minister has been for Indigenous rights, really?
No, like none of them really. But
That's what I mean. Since Mackenzie, yeah,
I
it's
know it was more of a rhetorical question.
yeah,
But a lot of them market themselves that way, and you do get occasional successes, you know, by bullying them into forming things like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
yeah,
Like that we got under one of our most conservative prime ministers, Stephen Harper.
yeah. That's right. Mr. Sweaterhead did that.
He also was prime minister when gay marriage passed, although very little thanks to him because it was more because we had a liberal Supreme Court.
Yeah, I do pay attention to Canadian politics, not as much as I used to, which
Well, that's okay. We have a rather dull politics, but
it's a nice politics. All I know is that if I walked 15 minutes, I could actually apply for asylum as a trans person, which is a very strange thing.
well, why not? Oh, actually, there probably is that third country agreement. Well, that might make it difficult, but yeah, I wouldn't mind having you in Canada.
I have people who would sponsor me. There's one nice thing about knowing people all over the world. I can find some place to crash. I don't know. I don't know if we got off topic or well. You said you're mostly a political channel, so this is
I am a political channel, but I feel like my politics, you know, veer away from the electoral. I have encouraged people to participate in the electoral system, and in
oh, yeah.
Canada, in contrast to a lot of people my age, yeah, I voted in every single election, like even, you know, by-elections, you know,
Mm-hmm.
mayoral elections, every single election that I've had an opportunity to vote, I have. But at the same time, I have been feeling very disillusioned with electoral politics, and it's frustrating. And I really wish that we had you know, I like more what I'm seeing in America right now, and to a lesser extent, my country, with the mass protest movement forcing politicians to accept their demands or, you know,
Or tear gas people.
well, yeah, the tear gas is a real thing that should be banned. It is criminal to use it against in wartime, so it should be criminal to use it against civilians in our
Yeah,
own countries.
I think while living in Buffalo, it was very strange to see one of the lasting images of the. I mean, the George Floyd thing started it obviously, but the thing that turned it around and got it more popular support, sadly, George Floyd didn't. Was more. I mean, more white support. Um, I have no better way of saying it. Is a guy being pushed down in front of my city hall when he wasn't really doing anything.
And then Trump defending it.
Yeah,
Oh, he was an agitator. He deserved it, you know.
he's the sweetest man too. Well, I hope he comes back and it just that it is somebody I know is one of those things in Buffalo, because everybody, oh, do you know? Yeah, I do. 2 million people, we all know each other.
So he was an acquaintance of yours?
Yeah, we met a couple times.
Well, I'm very sorry for what has happened to him, but at the very least, it has changed the conversation and made people wake up to how brutal policing is in America.
Yeah.
And, Canada too, don't get me wrong. I do not like the Canadian police.
Yeah. I if you want to know my actual politics, because I've been trying to be analytical more than anything else. My actual politics is I want to tear it all down. I'm a democratic socialist, but hardcore, and you know, um, isn't it? I'm trying to keep. I'm starting to try and have to keep my channel monetizable. So I will just say that there's an NWA song, that a very early NWA song that fits me very nicely. It was their first big hit. So,
I wonder what song that was.
it just could have been
Could it have something to do with ACAB? I wonder.
just a smidge. But the yeah, well, November is going to be torturous.
I'm not necessarily sure I can see a path for Trump to win.
Yeah, we thought that last time too.
True. That's what I keep telling people who tell me that. But at the same time, like, Trump is running in the middle of a pandemic and depression that never really goes well for elected leaders.
No one is fucking it up. Oh, well. Oh well, so much for that. It was fuck the police. So,
Yeah.
as soon as I said, yeah, the naughty
Already,
word, the
it's all
naughty
gone.
word.
All
Yeah,
potential for you to have a career, Christy, is disappeared, vanishing down
disappeared.
the drain.
And I'm good at code switching too. Damn it.
Why couldn't you just be civil, Christy? You
I'm,
could have been a contender.
I'm, I, I'm, I'm strangely civil in that I will be civil to somebody until they block me.
And then you can be uncivil towards them.
No, I don't bother with them again.
Oh, you're never uncivil to anyone. Wow, that's quite a gift.
Well, if nothing else, my mother taught me how to be absolutely devastating and piercing without ever being uncivil. It's sort of a bless your heart thing, which is our southernism for go fuck yourself.
um, yeah, myself as a particularly uncivil person, but I think, like everyone, if you push the right buttons, I can be not very nice to you.
Yeah, of course. And so much of my life, well, you have your studies. You're in Ottawa, so that would put you at. Well, you have a lot of colleges in Ottawa, so I'm not gonna.
That's right. It's university town.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
Would
try
you
and
like to
pin you
know?
down. If you want to, yes.
Personally, I feel it best to keep it vague just in case, I don't really want somebody to like track me down.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of annoying. I mean, they probably could with not that much effort, but still, anything that makes it more difficult for the annoying people of this world, it's fine by me.
Anybody who tried to find me would they could find me. It would take. You'd have to go through all my videos because I've actually pretty much triangulated where I am in the city. So, and I've got a famous YouTuber about a block away. That helps too.
It's always funny to think about, oh, look, a famous person lives in my city. Well, what do you know?
Yeah.
I think there probably is a famous YouTuber in Ottawa. I don't know them.
They don't live close enough. It's that she lives a block away from me. Is like, oh, good. We run into each other at the convenience store, and I don't have to talk to her, which is cool because I don't talk to her online either. So this way, I can
Don't
make it. I can make it a multimedia ignoring of her.
don't you find her to be fascinating?
I do not. She, if yeah, that's another thing. You can even find out who that is. So I don't use her name anymore though.
Mm-hmm. No, I find it interesting that we have been talking a lot about politics, but you haven't necessarily asked me about my ideology.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is your ideology? I mean, I'm gonna tear it all down and try something better. But
Mm. Uh, well, let me put it this way. I would say I am a postmodern neo-Marxist of the best variety. I subscribe to Gramsci's ideas of how to improve society. Um, I believe that there is value in the deconstruction of the grand narrative. And yet at the same time, I do find the grand narrative most appealing to me to be that of class struggle, even if I do not think that it is inevitable that one class will triumph over another. Well, I think it's inevitable in a certain sense that I think that one day the capitalists will be done away with, but I do not think it's inevitable that they won't be replaced by another class of some other kind of oppressor.
I don't think I don't think hierarchies are something one can do away with. One can change them, but mm, I don't. Even in supposedly non-hierarchical structures, hierarchies um, rebuild themselves.
Hmm. True to an extent, but I think that you can definitely remove certain kinds of hierarchies.
Oh, sure.
Um, for instance, in the vast majority of the countries of the world, the feudal nobility don't really have very much clout anymore.
Mm, Uh, and here, it's funny for a country without, and in my country, with that it specifically says in the Constitution to have no titles, other than elected offices and such.
Mm-hmm.
But to have no titles, our entire aspiration, the quote unquote American dream, is to have that title, whatever that title you can grab.
Hmm. To get as high as you can on whatever ladder.
Yeah,
Interesting, I guess.
yeah. And well, you're still under the Queen, so technically.
Yes, the Dominion of Canada.
And you've got Vancouver, which has a lot. Vancouver and Toronto, which has a lot of fun business. You're good. It's. I am. I've decided I'm out of it again. So, um, we've actually have been going roughly to time because I usually go between an hour and an hour 10.
Oh,
Um,
sure. If you feel like you've covered enough ground, you know.
this is
Obviously, the pleasure of talking with you is something that I am loath to give up so quickly.
well, I'm easily embarrassed when someone gives me a compliment. I don't know how to take it. Um, I'm just gonna assume that was something programmed, and you're all robots. To no,
Don't worry,
that's
I always hate being complimented. I assume the other person is lying and that they secretly mean the opposite. So completely understand where you're coming from, but I did mean it. As little as you may believe it at this particular moment. Perhaps in a year you can rewatch the video and say, Lapis did mean the compliment after all.
I would like to have you on again soon, because this is a conversation that isn't finished. So I always get antsy about the conversations that don't get finished or can go on forever.
Well, sometimes I do believe that anything really ends.
Nothing ends, Adrian. Nothing ever ends.
Mm.
The end of the Watchmen. Sorry.
Oh, I was more thinking of Peter S.C. Beagle. There's no such thing as happily ever after because nothing ever ends.
Oh yeah, there is that. Oh, well, you've read The Last Unicorn, so you're good.
Rather, I'm reading it right now and have watched the animated movie.
Never seen the animated movie. Got to meet Beagle before he died, which is nice. And yeah, it's a fantastic book.
Amazing. I love it to bits already.
Good. Well, you're well on your way. Okay, I got to do the YouTube prayer because we have to pray to the algorithm, but I'm gonna skew it
Like, comment, subscribe.
If you like this, please consider subscribing, hit the bell notification, and hit all, because that'll give you all of our lovely guests, because all of our guests so far have been very lovely. With one exception. Now I'm going to have everybody scrambling to figure out who it is.
Maybe you shouldn't have said that, Christy.
It was actually a joke, but I wanted
you wanted to set off the speculation. I bet you have one fan that is like, oh, who could it be? Who could it be? And they're just thinking now. And they're going to try to comb through all of your videos to find the one fan that Christy is not enthused with. You have no idea the motion of events that you have set into action, Christy.
I hope so. I mean, it's gonna. I found out that the way that you get ahead on YouTube is by drama, so I'm gonna create some artificial drama.
It works. And then, somebody will make a call out. Christy, I did not appreciate being anonymously called out. It is obviously me. And then you can make a response video saying, it wasn't you, but actually I don't like you at all. Blah, 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 blah. And on it goes. And both of you will gain hundreds of subscribers and you can build a huge brand off of hating each other.
I am all for that. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not. That's not me. It's so not me.
Too fake?
It's fake, and I tend to like people, even though I tend to sometimes not believe other people exist, but that's my own problem. That's to wrap it around to the beginning. Let's see. It's the monetary shit, because I have to be monetarily useful in this society. Mm-hmm. So there is a Patreon, which I'm working on. I'm going to start doing stuff on Patreon. Don't worry. I just haven't figured out what yet. On more of a regular schedule now, so it's worth it to everybody. I have a PayPal if you think it's worth it for right now, and I have a coffee in case, you don't like PayPal, which maybe you shouldn't.
I mean, fair enough. If you want to hear more of what I have to say, follow me at Degenerate Thing on Twitter, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Effeminate Degenerate, and make sure to hit the little gray bell to all, because you want to see all of what I have to say, don't you?
That's right. Both of us now. Damn it, you're going to watch us.
This is not a request, it is a demand.
Exactly. All right, well, I'm going to end it with first of all, thank you for being on, and I want you back on soon. I screwed up last year when we were trying to schedule something, and then the world fell apart, and
Hmm. I don't
everything
think it
went to
was so
shit.
long ago as last year, but
It feels like a year. I was thinking it was thinking March or February, and it's like, no, that's not a year, but it feels like it.
I think it was more around April, actually. April or early May.
Was it? Okay. I
But
can't.
either way,
I can't
um,
tell the days apart anymore.
2020 is a year where it feels like a decade, and I love it, but many do not.
There are parts of it I love, but parts of it which can pretty much go to hell. All right. I will leave. I will leave it to thank you and an insistence that you come back. You haven't answered that you will or not, so I'm gonna just keep
I
insisting until you.
will come back if
Okay.
you ask me, but only if you ask me. I will not jump into the stream if you have not asked me and say, well, whether you like it or not, Christy, here I am. The interview is going to be about me today. Shove off, other guest.
Yeah, I would probably be tricky about that. Um, although although most people wouldn't. I don't know. I'm now going through all my guests and you're going, which ones would actually be tricky about that? Anyway, the rest of the YouTube prayer is done. Do the things, you know the things. Everybody knows the things. Everybody's asking for the things. This is a call to action, as they say in the YouTube guidebook. You
Yes.
must call to action and tell people to do these things that they already know how to do. And but what I really want to say is, um, your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter. And thank you again to Lapis.
Thank you very much, Christy. Ta-ta for now, everybody.
Bye, and I'll do the live long and prosper because I'm a nerd. Bye.